everyone, and welcome to Lipstick on a Rig. Today we're going to be making this very simple Christmas stocking for your fireplace. And for this project, I'm working with size 4 medium weight acrylic yarn, and these are both the Big Twist value brand, and the colors are Khaki and Camel. And we'll also be using a size F or 5 or 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. And we're going to begin with our camel colored yarn, and we are going to attach it to our crochet hook using a slip knot. And then we're going to chain 16. And once you have your 16 chains in place, turn them over to access this third loop. So this is not a regular part of your normal stitch, but instead it's this back bump. And working right in this first chain beside our crochet hook, we're going to place a slip stitch. And then we're going to place one slip stitch in each of our 16 back bumps going all the way down our row. So when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 16 slip stitches. And at the end of your row, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And we're going to skip that chain 1 as a turning chain, and working in the back loop only of our first slip stitch, we're going to place a slip stitch. And then we're going to place one slip stitch in the back loop only of each of our remaining stitches. So when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 16 slip stitches in a chain 1. And at the end of the row, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work again. And from here, we're just going to repeat that last row over and over to build the body of the brim of our stocking. And I followed that pattern until I had a total of 36 of these ridges here. And so once you have 36 ridges, make sure you end your last row to where your crochet hook is on the opposite side of your starting tail. Then we're going to fold this in half. And from here, we're going to use slip stitches to join these two edges. So make sure you've placed a chain stitch at the end of your last row, and then you're going to insert your crochet hook up underneath this full stitch right here, right beside your chain. And on the opposite edge, you're going to insert your crochet hook up underneath the full stitch. And this is your chain stitch, so it might be a little bit tight. And once you're underneath the full stitch on both sides, then you're just going to yarn over and drop all the loops on your crochet hook. And now we're just going to repeat that for all the stitches in our row. So we're just going to work up both sides here. And once you've joined your two edges together, then we're going to chain 35. And once you have your 35 chains in place, then you're going to slip stitch into one of these available loops near where your chain starts. And it doesn't really matter where. And now we're going to turn this inside out. And this is how your stocking is going to hang, so you can add additional chains or take any away if this is not the size of the loop that you want to hang your stocking from. And you're just going to draw this up the inside, so it's going to hang something like this. And so from here, we're going to go ahead and just turn this so that we're working on the pretty outside here. And so for this next row, we're going to be working in the available loops at the top of these ridges here. So you can see that you have several loops to choose from, but our goal is to work in this large loop right here at the top of each of our ridges. And so what we're going to do is we're going to place one single crochet in the top of our first 5 ridges, and then we're going to place 2 single crochets in the top of our 6th. And I'm going to crochet over my tail, so I'll show you how to do that. So right here is where I joined for my chain 35. So I'm just going to dive right into this loop at the top of my next ridge. I'm going to drape my starting tail over my crochet hook and just work over it. So I'm going to yarn over and pull up through the loop and the tail, and yarn over and drop my last 2 loops. And I'm going to repeat that for the next 4 ridges. So now you should have a total of 5 single crochets. So in your next ridge right here in that top loop, you're going to place 2 single crochets instead of 1. And that's going to be our pattern going all the way around our row. So we're going to place 1 single crochet at the top of our next 5 ridges, and then we're going to place 2 single crochets at the top of our 6th. And when we get to the end of our row, we should have a total of 42 single crochets. And when you get to the end of your row, if you don't have exactly 42 single crochets, then make any necessary adjustments in these loops at the top of your ridges. So either add additional stitches or don't add additional stitches. But either way, you want to work in the top loop of the ridge because that makes a cleaner line for your transition. And again, when you get back to the end of your row, you should have 42 single crochets. So now we're going to remove our crochet hook from our loop, but we won't be cutting and tying off our yarn. So we're just going to slide the loop pretty far out and then remove our crochet hook. And now we're going to grab our khaki yarn and we're going to attach it to our crochet hook using a slip knot. And now working in the first single crochet stitch with our camel colored yarn, we're going to insert our crochet hook. And so from here, we're going to yarn over and pull up through the stitch, and then yarn over and drop our 2 loops. And now I'm going to work over my khaki tail here. You don't have to. Again, it's just an option that you have. And all we're going to do is place 1 single crochet in each of our camel colored single crochet stitches. And we're going to do this until we get close to this last stitch where we pulled out our yarn. So just a few stitches away from it. So go ahead and place 1 single crochet in each stitch in your row. And when you get close to the end of your row, go ahead and pull out your crochet hook from your khaki colored yarn. And then insert your crochet hook back in that camel loop that you pulled out before. So from here, we're just going to dive right into our first khaki colored stitch right here. And we're going to begin placing our single crochet stitches. And we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch in our row until we get close to where we pulled out our yarn for our khaki color. And again, when you get back close to your khaki colored yarn, we're going to pull out our camel color and then insert our crochet hook back in our khaki color. And again, we're just going to start right in our next camel colored stitch, and we're going to start placing single crochet stitches. And so this is going to be our pattern while we build the body of our stocking. We're just going to continue to crochet over each color, and our rows will not begin or end, but both colors are going to sort of act like a spiral on top of each other. So go ahead and place one single crochet in each stitch in each row, and you're just going to alternate your colors like we've been doing. And I went ahead and placed 30 rows of single crochets from the sort of stretchy part of our stocking. And so now we're going to fold our stocking in half to where this chain 35 is on one of the folds. And you're going to end one of your colors here. So right now my camel colored yarn is lined up roughly with that ridge and that chain 35. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to place one single crochet in our next 20 stitches. And once you have your 20 single crochets in place, then you're going to want to grab a stitch marker or a scrap piece of yarn for the next part. So next we're going to place 5 single crochets in our next stitch. And go ahead and pull out your yarn, and you're going to want to mark the third stitch of those 5, the center stitch here. And this is where we're going to place our scrap yarn or our stitch marker. And from here, we're going to continue placing one single crochet in the rest of our stitches. And just make sure that your 5 single crochets aren't hiding another stitch from you, because you don't want to lose a stitch when you're doing this. And then go ahead and place one single crochet in the remaining stitches in your row until you get close to your khaki colored yarn. And now we're going to remove our crochet hook from our camel colored yarn and insert our crochet hook in our khaki colored yarn. And if you counted around your row right now, you should have a total of 46 single crochets. And so from here, we're going to place one single crochet in each stitch between our crochet hook and our stitch marker. And when you get back to your stitch marker here, go ahead and remove it. And then we're going to place 5 single crochets in that stitch where we had our stitch marker previously. And again, we are going to mark the middle or third stitch of those 5. And again, we're just going to place one single crochet in each stitch until we get back to our camel colored yarn. And so when you get back to your camel colored yarn, you're just going to remove your crochet hook and insert it in your camel color. And from here, we're just going to continue to repeat that last row. So we're going to place one single crochet in the stitches between our crochet hook and our stitch marker. And then we're going to place 5 single crochets where we have our stitch marker and mark the third stitch of those 5 for the next row. And we're just going to continue to repeat that pattern to build out the sort of boot portion of our stocking. And so I followed that pattern for a total of 7 rows. And so the total number of stitches going all the way around my row is 70. And I am going to leave my stitch marker in this last row where I placed my stitch marker in that middle stitch of my 5, because I want to make sure that I have this pointing out as far as I really want it to. So if you want this to be a more dramatic or a larger sized foot for the stocking boot, then you just want to keep following that pattern for more rows than 7. So from here, we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch in each row to build the body of the sort of boot of our stocking. And you're going to keep crocheting your colors on top of each other, just like we've been doing for the entire pattern. And I went ahead and added 10 rows of single crochets after my last increasing part of my boot, and now it looks something like this. And for our next part, we're going to go ahead and tie off one of our yarn strands. So make sure you end this somewhere near this chain and your original connecting ridge here. So this is where our row began initially. And so once you're close to this fold, then you're just going to slip stitch into your next stitch and then cut and tie off your yarn. And you want your slip stitch as close to this fold as possible. So next, we're going to pull out this other color until we can get to our original stitch. So right there. So now you should be in the same stitch where you cut and tied off your other color. So for our next row, we're going to place 1 single crochet in our first 8 stitches, and then we're going to single crochet together the 9th and the 10th stitch. And I'll show you how to do that. So once you have your 8 single crochets in place, then insert your crochet hook up underneath your 9th stitch and yarn over and pull up through. Then up under your 10th stitch and yarn over and pull up through. Then yarn over and drop all 3 loops on your crochet hook. And go ahead and repeat that pattern going all the way around your row, placing 1 single crochet in your next 8 stitches and then single crocheting together your 9th and your 10th stitch. And when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 63 single crochets. And when you get to the end of your row, you should have 1 slip stitch left from your previous color. So from here, we're just going to turn our stocking inside out. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to line up the 2 halves of our fold, and we're going to work in this stitch directly behind where our slip stitch from our previous color is, and we're going to place a slip stitch there. Then we're going to insert our crochet hook up underneath our next stitch on both edges here like this, and we're going to yarn over and drop all the loops for a slip stitch. And we're just going to repeat this for every stitch on both sides of our fold here. And this should join the 2 edges to finish off our stocking. And when you're done joining your 2 sides, it should look something like this. So now we're just going to cut and tie off our yarn, and then we're going to turn this inside out again. And when you get done, your stocking should look something like this. So please let me know in the comments below if you experienced any issues while you were making this, and I will do my best to help you out. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, Lipstick on a Rig. Thank you so much for working with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day.